So go ahead, show us the memes that we're going to be reviewing today.
Yes, so let me show it to you. So this is actually a really good one too, because I liked it too. So yeah, let me play this video. So I don't know if you want to describe it, Chloe.
Yeah, so basically it's that the architect is like designing all these crazy buildings, and then the engineer's like, why the heck are you doing this? This is one of my favorite videos of like all time of meme videos. I die over this one over and over. Because I actually wanted to be an architect when I was younger. So I find the little tension between civil engineers and architects kind of hilarious, because I do understand like what the architects are going for, but then I also understand the pain of a civil engineer trying to like make the architect's dream a reality. So I just find that really funny.
Have you designed like really weird buildings or anything like that, that an architect like literally goes up to you and say, this is what I want to build? Like, if any of you guys have watched How I Met Your Mother, Ted Mosby was an architect, and you know, he was one of the main characters. He designed like this really weird building. So as a civil engineer, have you had any of those, you know, queries and back and forth with an architect?
Not too much. I'm in the power industry, so we don't do too many like buildings that would really matter what they, you know, look like. I've had a couple run-ins with architects for certain things for buildings in our stations, but they're small things. They're not like crazy. But I actually own a business outside of my 9-to-5 job that I like kind of do architecture. So, but that's just residential home architecture. So it's nothing too crazy like those buildings they were showing.
Right. All right, let's go to our next meme. Let's see.
That one friend who teaches you the entire syllabus 1 hour before the exam. Okay, so I saw this one on Engineering Memes Guy like recently, and I died because this image like just took me back to college, and I was not that person. I was the one getting that from someone. I had a really good friend in college who she was this guy, and I would literally show up an hour before the exam in like one of our tutoring rooms and be like, all right, let's go. Teach me everything. And she just like boom, 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 boom. And somehow I always did well from that. So I owe a lot of my degree to her, I think.
I don't know if, you know, all of us have graduated since then, but I don't know if you guys have this recurring dream, but I still have this dream after like 6 years of graduating college that I go to class and it's like final exam day and I've never been to class. And then, you know, you show up and then like my grade is dependent on this. I don't know if any of you guys have this dream, but I still have it.
I have
Oh my God.
I actually have a dream of me not graduating. Like I'm still in college and I'm like, oh wait, I did graduate. Like, okay, I have a job right now. Okay, it's all good. I did it once and it was pretty real. I was like, oh geez, like it felt like I was still in college and that was not good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. I know.
So yes, I can relate.
All right, do we have any more memes?
We do.
Okay.
If you're an engineering student that runs Mac, oh God, as your primary student, sorry, as I'm running Mac, there you go. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
No, as a civil engineer, we use AutoCAD, MicroStation, Civil 3D, and AutoCAD for Mac is so flipping horrible. And I just remember in classes, like when I was young in undergrad and we were first like downloading the student version of AutoCAD, like the teacher had to do an entire office hours for people with Mac just to try to like make it work and, you know, switch the software and everything. So I just think, and I had a Mac in the beginning and then I was like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, same. I can relate. I had my Mac. Actually, it was stolen, so it's gone, and now I just use Windows. I'm like, all right, Windows is all I need, really.
Yeah, never going
for all
back.
my software.
Yeah, as a chemical engineer, we use a lot of MATLAB, and I thought I used that MATLAB for Mac at first, and it was just horrible. So I ended up buying a HP, and yeah, I don't know. I can relate to that meme. All right. So that is our meme review. Oh, so there's one more? Oh, perfect.
Oh, show your work in run out of time, only write the answer, and get no partial credit. 100%. So especially in like big, my structural classes, a lot of structural engineering, there's a lot of like stuff to show, but sometimes like you can kind of get the answer without showing it all. So I know that feeling of trying to decide what's better. Do I get an answer or do I just get the work?
Yeah, which one do you choose all the time?
Usually the work, and then usually 100% guilty of doing work and just being like, all right, I get probably 20% of this problem, but if I write a lot and throw like all kinds of concepts in there, I've got to get some points somewhere.
Yeah, no, I definitely. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I've already worked, like, yeah, I show my work. I hated those, like, classes where, like, your grade was, like, just 3 exams. I was like, oh my God, like, no, like, this is horrible. Yeah.
So bad.
Yes.
But yeah, that is our meme review. Eduardo and Sandra, you're more than welcome to stay on. If not, I'm going to say bye to you guys. And we're going to talk about Chloe and have her introduce herself.
Yeah, I'll be watching y'all. So.
Me too. Me
Sounds
too.
good.
This is my favorite Wednesday show.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, Chloe, I've actually never met you in person. I follow you on social media, so this is more of like an introduction to, for me too. So please introduce yourself. Again, this is Women in STEM Wednesday, brought to you by Engineering Memes Guy, Lumis Automation, Papaya Tutor, and STEMedia. And it's a weekly discussion that we have focusing on putting a spotlight on a different women in STEM. And this week we're doing a civil engineering part 2, and we have Chloe on here, who is amazing. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Chloe, at Chloe the Engineer on Instagram, and I am a civil engineer based in Los Angeles, California. I work in the power industry, so I do civil engineering I work on both generation and distribution projects, work on a lot of renewable energy projects as we're trying to get Los Angeles to run on 100% renewables by 2035. So yeah, that's what I do day to day. And then I also have a company that does residential design and construction.
Perfect. So that's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know anything about civil engineering or power. Like, I don't know anything of that. I'm a chemical engineer working at NASA, not even as chemical engineering. I'm an integration engineer. So this is going to be really interesting for me just because I don't really know a lot about civil engineering. So before we get started on anything else, we both went through the engineering classes. Both went through engineering school, whether it was chemical or civil. What was one of the classes as a civil engineer that you took that was extremely hard, or some of the struggles that you went through when you were in college?
I hate saying this to you though, but I hate chemistry so much.
No. I mean, I get it. I'm
not good at chemistry. So I had one just honestly basic chemistry. It was like called chemistry for engineers. It was basically like for a lot of schools do like chemistry A, B, or 1, 2, and then chemistry C, D, or 3, 4. And like our school just had like a chemistry for engineers. So it was both of those classes put together. I struggled hard. I was so glad when that was done. And then for whatever reason, I took an elective that was like a really high level environmental engineering class, which was pure chemistry. So why I chose that, no idea. So those were the classes I really did not enjoy in college.
I mean, as a chemical engineer, I failed organic chemistry. I mean, I wish I had something like Papaya Tutor to help me while I was in college, because I could not get it. And a lot of that was just, I thought I was going to fail chemical engineering in general, and I thought I was going to go. So again, I wish I had something like a Papaya tutor that could have just dumbed it down for me, because I just did not get that class a lot. So I get it. A lot of people either love chemistry or hate it. So no offense on my end. So, whenever you're going through college, you were struggled through a lot of the classes. Did you ever feel like, as a woman in STEM, did you ever feel, how's the dynamic of your class? Are you the only woman in the class? Are there other women? Tell me a little bit more about that.
100%. Yeah. So I had a lot of classes that there were like very, very few women, especially in a lot of the upper division civil engineering classes. It kind of sometimes would start out with more women, and then as we got higher in like junior, senior year, and the women just dropped off. But I had a great experience in many ways. A lot of my classmates were amazing. I also had a little bit of a different dynamic as well, because I was a female athlete. I was at school on a full ride Division I soccer scholarship. So to be an engineer and then also telling your engineering professors like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week for like NCAA finals or whatever. They were like, the heck, you're going where? So I had like a lot of different dynamics to navigate in college, but yeah, it was interesting. And I got really involved in like American Society of Civil Engineers student chapter, and we had that was one of the ways, and Society of Women Engineers. So those kind of allowed me to get to know a lot of my female classmates that I might not have had classes with. So I really recommend like that to students, to try to find like, a good group of people to go through school with.
Yeah, I call them hype women if all the time. Again, kind of pivoting a little bit. Well, first of all, I kind of had a similar experience, except I was in marching band. I was a huge nerd. So like sometimes I would disappear for football games, and then the professor would be like, why? You're in band, no one needs you. And so I'm just like, I'm an athlete. I'm just kidding. No. So so going back to having that hype women, finding your space, how have you as a professional now used social media to find your quote unquote hype women? Have you been involved in those organizations that you were in college, and have you volunteered your time now that you're a professional versus you are a student?
Yeah, 100%. So the biggest one I was involved in as a student was American Society of Civil Engineers, or ASCE, and I'm still heavily involved in ASCE to this day. So I'm in the professional chapter in Los Angeles and the younger members chapter in Los Angeles. And it's an amazing thing doing, we do a lot of like working with kids, K through 12 outreach, and then also professional development as well. And so it's really good to continue doing that outside of college, because in college it's very like you're doing a lot of student projects and a lot of like development as a student, and then it kind of changes, but it's still that fun vibe and community that we have in college. And then for social media, so I started doing social media a long time ago, and I was kind of doing it in a more lifestyle blogging kind of way. And then I started talking about how I never saw any like bloggers that did STEM, and talked about, a lot of bloggers, their ultimate goal is to kind of do content creation full time and not necessarily have a career outside. And I wanted to see content creators that were talking about their careers, especially in STEM. So that's when I changed my name to Chloe the Engineer and started creating like pretty much all STEM content. And I've made an amazing community, including you. And I saw Paulina in here.
Yeah, we have like the whole crew. We have Claudia, we have Paulina. I mean, we have like the whole crew here.
And those are some of the best hype women out there. So
absolutely, yeah. And so you touch on a really good point, because when I first started Instagram, I thought that Instagram or social media in general was just for like travel blogging or like food blogging. Like I didn't really think that it was more like STEM or engineering related. And so when I first started off, I was Lawyer Up. I don't know if any of you guys are like Breaking Bad fans, but Lawyer Up was my name. And I posted like again, travel and all that stuff. And like you said, I changed my name to Your Female Engineer, just like you did, Chloe the Engineer, because I wanted to start creating content. Like you said, I didn't really see any engineering. I didn't really see women in engineering. So it's really important to have this community, to have things like this, so we can continue to break stereotypes, continue to keep going through those, breaking down those barriers for everybody out there. And so speaking of, I know that you are pretty famous. Last year, you created a really amazing hashtag, stomping down stereotypes. And, I'm going to let you explain it, but it is a really, really good hashtag that, again, showcases the, how we can be women in engineering, how we can change those norms. So go right ahead and tell us about your hashtag.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, so I have to start every conversation about stomping out stereotypes like this. Complete accident. The story of stomping out stereotypes, I had this idea for quite a while, actually. I just never really went about taking the photo, but it was 1 foot in a steel toe boot and 1 foot in a high heel. And I don't know, I just came up with this idea and wanted to shoot it, and I just thought it was like a really good message of showing, you can be both. You can be the girly girl in dresses and heels, but you can also get down in the dirt and be on a construction site in steel toes. And I just sat on the idea, and then I was actually going on a business trip up north for work, and I was trying to content plan. So I had some content because I knew I was not going to be able to take any photos or anything during the week. And so right before I was leaving, I told my partner, Brian, hey, take this photo real quick. Took it, posted it the next morning when I left for my trip. And then I was driving through the desert, lost service, didn't check my phone. And then I checked my phone 6 hours later, and the thing had blown up, and people were commenting this needs to be a challenge, let's make this. And then someone came up with the hashtag stomping out stereotypes. So I can't even take full credit for the actual hashtag. Someone came up with it, and I loved it, and I thought it fit perfectly. So I was like, all right, guys, go wild, stomping out stereotypes. And that was the beginning. And now there's over probably around 400 posts in that hashtag, and all different women who took it all different directions. There's ballet slippers with a boot, and there's roller skates, there's pole shoes, there's everything. So it's really cool to scroll through.
Yeah, I again, we have this amazing community of women in STEM who hype each other up. We're here to bring each other, whenever you have a challenge or something, we're the first ones to say, yes, let's do it. So, I know a lot of the women on here, I know I did one with some chemistry beakers in the background. I know a lot of people don't like chemistry, but, it's just fantastic because it showcases that, I can wear high heels, yet I can still, the night before, and then the very next day I can go onto the launch site and, help launch a rocket or help build a pad. So it's just fantastic. And I absolutely loved it. So since then, have you had any partnerships with anybody? Have you, based on that, have you, I know the answer to this, but does everybody else know the answer of a lot of the stuff that's come your way because of that hashtag?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of blown up. I've been on a few podcasts, talked on articles about it. It's gotten featured in some LA magazines, got featured in national ASCE. So ASCE is an international organization, and they have a magazine that goes out to the whole world. Basically, it got featured in that. It's been really cool. I've been working with a couple brands. I probably can't say some of them yet, but it's been really fun, and I just think it's a great message. So it's not even about being featured or anything like that. It's just about getting the message out, and then so many women relating to it, but in their own way. It's not necessarily always going to be a steel toe and a heel, but what that represents to so many women is what I find so cool, that they can take that and be like, yeah, that's a great image. We can be both, maybe in a different way, but we can always be both. So
yeah, absolutely. So again, for anyone who's just joining, this is Women in STEM Wednesday. We have Chloe the engineer. This is civil engineering part 2. We're kind of talking about all of the different things. You know, right now I'm going to try to pivot and I'm going to ask you more questions about how it's like to be a woman in STEM. So, you know, as a career professional working in civil engineering, when I think of civil engineering, I think of going out to the field. I think of, you know, concrete. I think of a whole bunch of different things that I don't necessarily typically see a woman, you know, being out there. So, you know, tell me a little bit more about being a woman in STEM in the civil engineering profession that you currently work in right now.
Yeah, 100%. Being in civil engineering, so there's also, civil engineering is very broad, so you can be in structural, environmental, water. There's so many different things. I happen to be in the power industry, and I feel like power is even more so male dominated than some of the other fields of civil engineering. So my biggest project right now, when I am out on site, I'm the only girl on site. So it's an interesting dynamic, but I kind of love it, as well as like I obviously I'm so passionate about promoting women in STEM and getting more women out there with me, but I also do like love the opportunity to be, you know, one of the first and one of the only at this time. And I really do have amazing coworkers. There's definitely been, obviously, we've all had the moments of, you know, the annoying men, but for the most part, I have amazing coworkers and I have amazing field guys that I work with, and I learn from them, they learn from me, and we have great relationships, and it's really cool. But yeah, it can be an interesting dynamic. I mean, the funniest one that's ever happened to me was actually a previous project where, again, I was the only girl, and they felt so bad that they printed out a piece of paper that said girls, and they put it on one of the porta potties on site. And I was like, what are you guys doing? It's a porta potty. It doesn't need to be like girls or boys. And they're like, yeah, but they get so gross and we feel bad for you, so you should have like your own. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like one of the funniest instances of like them recognizing, oh dang, she's the only girl on site.
So have you, you know, you have amazing coworkers. Have you ever experienced in any of your professional career, you know, any kind of microaggressions, whether that be towards you or towards another coworker? And if you have, you know, how do you deal with that stuff? Do you call them out? Like, how would you deal with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've dealt with it. One of the biggest ones is being like assumed to be the secretary, multiple times. Not just one, blatantly like 100% assumed I was the secretary, like not even like putting that on me, but assuming I was the secretary. That time, I mean, on my page, I like to, you know, do a lot of quotes and do things of what we should be doing as women. But I always try to say on my page, just because I might be saying like this great advice doesn't mean it's always like I'm very good at it. Like I might be working at it too. Just because that's what we strive for doesn't mean necessarily I'm perfect at it. So that time it happened, I was so shocked and stunned. I said nothing. I just was like, wait, what? I kind of was like, no, I'm not the secretary. And he like just kind of stuttered and got embarrassed and walked away. So that time I didn't really say anything, but I think the best way to handle it is to just stand your ground, not get overly emotional and be like yelling or anything, but be able to firmly say like, hey, that's not cool. Or my favorite one is to ask them a question. So if you ever get, you know, a microaggression or they say something to you that feels off, you can say, well, why did you say that? Or why did you feel that way, or what did you mean by that? And sometimes just that simple question can make them, sometimes they're saying something without really thinking about what they're saying, and that makes them take a step back and be like, wait, did that sound bad, or why was that bad, and all that. So that's my favorite way to go about it. I also advocate for, you know, allies. I have an amazing coworker who, when I was once asked to take notes just because I was the only girl in the room, he just slid the notebook back and he's like, dude, take your own notes. Like, that's not what she's here for. And it literally, like, the guy realized what he did. He never did it again. And we just moved on from there. And that was like the best thing that could have happened. Just his small comment made all the difference, like a huge difference in my career. And I think men don't always realize how big of an impact they can make with really small gestures.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, male allies are really important. And so, you know, again, we're doing Women in STEM Wednesday on Eduardo's Engineering Means Guy account. You know, and he's a huge male ally because, you know, he's allowing us to use his platform of a good amount of people to showcase women, to showcase you, to showcase other women as well. And so male allies make a huge difference, and you don't know that, you know, just standing up for your coworker, how much of a difference that makes. I mean, I know personally, you know, I was a project lead on one of my engineering projects. I walked into a room of engineers that I've never met because it was kind of like a breakout session. And I walked in, I was the only female, and one of the men came up to me and was like, hey, would you like to take notes during this meeting? And like you said, I didn't, you know, I calmly was just kind of looked at him. I don't want to berate people, because usually when you talk down to them, they shut down. And so they don't really get the message if you yell at them. So if you kind of just calmly, you know, I think I said like, no, I think I'm going to be busy. And then I walked to the front of the room and I introduced myself as the lead engineer. You know, that person who said that did not make any eye contact with me. I know their face was red, but, you know, doing stuff like that, it shows that, you know, they may not understand what they're doing at the time, but it's really important to just, you know, if you're a male coworker and you hear that, you can say, hey, you know, like your coworker said, take your own notes. You know, you don't have to ask the only female in the room to take your notes. And so I think it's extremely important to have those male allies, you know, in the workplace and then also in college, because, you know, I think I was one of 5 in my 60, 70 person cohort for chemical engineering. And so, you know, it was really important to, you know, include everybody and include the female students as well. So we don't feel like we're just in a male dominated world. So, but yeah, and so thank you so much. My other question is, okay, so now I know that you volunteer throughout the community. I know that you actually got me started on letters to a pre-scientist.
Yeah.
I know that you posted about it on Instagram, and I was like, this is really interesting. So for those of you who don't know, letters to a pre-scientist is, you know, little kids either in middle school, elementary school, who are interested in STEM. And what they do is this amazing organization partners you with a kid who's in school who's interested in going into STEM or who's interested in STEM career. So my little guy is from Ohio, and he's really into NASA. He's really into space and wants to be a chemical engineer. So I've been a pen pal with them throughout the entire school year, and it's really rewarding because, you know, they ask you questions like, you know, how fast does a rocket go? Or like, how many people does it take to build a rocket? So really cute questions like that. And Chloe is the one who posted about it. So, you know, I know that she volunteers a lot throughout the community. So go ahead and let us know a little bit more about your volunteer work.
Yeah, Letters to a Pre-Scientist is so fun. And I was so bummed this year. So my little guy was in, he's actually not so little. He's in middle school, but he was so smart. There was a couple times I had to look up words that he used in his letter. That boy is going places.
Even though we're scientists and like engineers, we Google stuff. Like I Google stuff all the time. I'm not the smartest person that, like, I don't know if you watched the beginning, Sandra was asking us like to dumb down the Bernoulli equation. And I'm like thinking, I know the equation, but like to dumb it down to like a 5th grader, I can't do that. That's why Papaya tutors are so great. But, you know, I'm so glad I have not gotten that so far.
Yeah, he was amazing, and he's super interested in energy, and he was telling me about all these things around the world that I should look into, and he was awesome. I was really bummed though that it was for me, for LA still hasn't gone full-time back to school, so we were email letters the entire year, and I really wanted to send him some fun stuff in his letter. So hopefully next year, schools are opening all back up now, so I'm sure next year's letters will be all snail mail, so that'll be fun. But yeah, I love Letters to a Pre-Scientist. That's really fun. Through ASCE, I get to do a lot of work with schools. I used to be on a high school advisory board that was transitioning from just a regular high school to a STEM magnet high school. I get to go into classrooms all from kindergarten through 12th grade and do activities with them and tell them about engineering. I do a lot of work with, there's an amazing movie on, it's actually on Netflix now. It's called Dream Big, Engineering Our World. It's an awesome, awesome movie for all levels of kids. I mean, I'm obsessed with it as, you know, grown woman. So I think anyone interested in STEM in any way would love it. So we show that a lot to kids. I work a lot on Engineers Week, so National Engineers Week. We do 5 days of activities for different levels of kids, and Girl Day, Girl Scouts Day, middle school, high school, elementary school. So I was the chair of that in Los Angeles this year. So I do a lot with kids. That's really my passion, is to show the younger generation that they can do it too, and it's not out of reach for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, again, one of our partners, STEMedia, is really big on mentoring, and, you know, they have conferences. I think I joined one of their conferences last year, and that's how I heard about STEMedia. They had some really amazing guests on there, and they had breakout rooms, and, you know, seeing people in the roles that you want to be is extremely important. So especially for us women, you know, showcasing that we can do these jobs, that you can do these jobs, you know, representation matters, and it's extremely important. And, you know, an organization like STEMedia that can connect you with mentors, you know, you doing this volunteer work, you're mentoring these kids. You know, us doing these letters, we're mentoring these kids to get into STEM. So I think it's extremely important of the work that we do outside of our full-time job. Because not only do we have a full-time job, we do this volunteer work, but we also do a lot of content creation on Instagram because we want to showcase a lot of the stuff that, you know, what we do. So, you know, I know that you were a Learn on TikTok, you know, person. And so tell me a little bit more about the videos that you have on TikTok. Do you think it's important for us to do a lot of this educational content on all different kinds of social media? Because I think, you know, TikTok is a little bit more on the younger side. And Instagram, you know, is a little bit in the middle. So, you know, some of the differences between both, at least, you know, for both of the platforms that I've done, is like I have to do videos in like 15 seconds and try to teach something and try to, like, you know, do something in 15 seconds, which is really hard. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your TikTok account.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm a little guilty of not keeping up with TikTok as well. Once Reels came out, I kind of started focusing on that and didn't go back to TikTok as much. But I think it's really important. There's all kinds of, I love Clubhouse as well. I can't wait till that rolls out to, you know, all, not
Android.
just iOS. Yeah, Android. I really have a good time on Clubhouse. I think it's a very different vibe than Instagram and TikTok, and I really love doing content over there. Yeah, I have done TikTok, so a lot of my TikTok videos are kind of more on the humorous side, of kind of making fun of things and, you know, civil engineering and being a woman on site and talking to general contractors, a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I need to get back on TikTok. I have a hard time with TikTok sometimes, and I would get really into it.
You want to do the dances, like, and, you know, like
I'm not a dancer. But I really like diversifying. And then there's also Bookshelf. That's a totally different kind of content, but I've had fun on there as well. I've met a lot of people who are really interested in the, you know, the shelves I had. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to diversify your different content because you're going to reach so many different types of audiences, and they're all good in their own way.
Yeah, actually, Twitter started something like Clubhouse, and so now you can actually do like breakout rooms and talk it like the exact same format of Clubhouse on Twitter. So that's kind of, you know, a really neat program if you want to look into that as well. But yeah, so, you know, we're at like 20 minutes left. What else, you know, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now. I know that you just recently went on a project. You know, tell us a little bit more about the work that you currently do right now.
Yeah, so I work in work in the power industry, and so basically, as a civil engineer, I never thought I would go into power. So when we're in school, you know, I feel like we are kind of exposed to a lot of the different career paths we think we're going to take. Power was never really talked about in civil engineering. You just think of like electrical and mechanical engineers doing like the power industry, but I guess if you think about it, like all generating stations, distribution, transmission lines, like that's a lot of civil engineering. So when you see the transmission lines going through the mountains like that, like a lot of civil engineering with the foundations and the grading and everything goes into that. So I never really realized it until I graduated and that job became available. And even getting the job, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It just sounds cool. Like, let's figure it out on the fly. So But I work on all kinds of projects. So whenever there's a new generating station, a new power plant, I do all the site work for that. We also have structural engineers who are a type of civil engineer who do all the, the piers and the foundations for all of our big equipment. I design a lot of oil containment. So when, we have big transformers that have a ton of oil in them, and they do explode once in a while. So when they do, you don't want that oil getting into our oceans and our, sewer systems and all that. So we have to design pumps and, different kinds of physical containment so that oil stays in one place. So I do a lot of that. Recently on Instagram, I was sharing that I was on a transmission line in the middle of Nevada, in the middle of mountains, hiking and off-roading to inspect about 200 something transmission towers. So that we're going to be upgrading a transmission line. And so we have to inspect all of those towers and make sure that they're, doing okay right now, and what needs to be done to them to be able to hold the upgrade.
So when you were in college, did you think that this was the career that you wanted to get into?
Absolutely not. I was convinced I wanted to be a structural engineer. I worked at a firm. I worked at a transportation and structural engineering firm during college. So that was my internship from sophomore year until I graduated. I loved that company, so I stayed there the whole time. And I worked heavily in transportation, found out I did not like it. Sorry to any of my lovely friends that are in transportation.
Oh, Vanessa, she was here last week. Come on.
Vanessa, Valeria, they're all transportation. It just wasn't for me. I did enjoy my experience, but it wasn't for me. And I was convinced I wanted to do structural. So I got my boss to let me transfer into the structural division. And I did bridges, and I really enjoyed doing bridges. And then when I graduated, so structural engineering is one of those fields that just a lot of private companies really want you to have a master's degree in structural engineering to be able to become a structural design engineer. So I did a few interviews, and it was very obvious they were not very interested in me because I did not have that master's degree. And that's when I found this job, and I just went for it, and I've been there for years now. So obviously worked out well.
So do you need to have a master's in engineering or master's degree to be in your field?
No. So when I got this job, I only had a bachelor's in civil engineering, just general civil engineering. When I did go back, I was still working full time, and I went back part-time at night. Took 3 years, and I got my degree, my master's degree in engineering management. I got it in industrial systems engineering, but with a concentration in engineering management. So honestly has really not much to do. It's more of like the business side, and it's more of like the business side and a lot of management principles. So it's not really heavily technical degree. So no, you really don't need a master's to do what I do, but there are certain paths of civil engineering that are it's helpful more if you have a master's degree, and structural is one of those.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people ask me if you need a master's degree to work at NASA, and you definitely don't. Engineering is, it's very versatile. So, like you said, some are very concentrated, like structural engineering. A lot of companies do require that, but a bachelor's degree in whatever engineering field is typically really good. You can find jobs anywhere. Again, NASA included. You don't need a master's degree to work at NASA. And so, okay, so I know that we only have a few minutes left. So I want to ask, what is some advice that you would give to your younger self, and the audience that we have right here?
Honestly, the advice I would have given to my younger self was to chill out a little bit. I was very, very high strung in college, and very like, I have to be perfect. I have to graduate in 4 years. I need to have this perfect intro abroad and get that experience. I think that would have been an amazing experience, but I was so caught up in like graduating in 4, getting that job, starting to make like good money and all that, that I kind of blew off those opportunities. So I feel that that's what I would tell myself if I could go back. And I have a mentee actually who she got that opportunity. And I was like, if I were you, I would take it 100%. I didn't do anything like that when I was in college. And it's one of probably my only regret from college is not maybe going abroad or doing a co-op or something for a semester.
Yeah, I had a lot of co-op and internships. I was part of the Pathways program. It helped pay for college. So a lot of the college students that are out there, like Chloe said, internship experience is extremely important. Whenever you're going through college, especially now, the students who are going through college with this whole COVID thing, I'm sure that they're struggling a lot more than when I went to college, because I actually went to class and talked to my professors, and they don't have that ability to do that. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about is mental health. We need to make sure that we're okay. And so, like you said, to chill out. I was not perfect. I failed several classes, but I still graduated, and I still ended up in the job that I want to be. So, one of the lessons that I would definitely tell my younger self is, again, to chill out, just like that internship experience, and it really, really helps when you're looking for jobs, because I think there's a meme out there for this meme account that when you graduate, they want like 20 years experience, and you're like set 21 or something like that. So it's a lot of that experience you get through college, and you get through working through co-ops or working at internships. So like Chloe said, take the summer semester or winter semester, look for those internships, even if you have to graduate a little bit more, because when you graduate, you already have that job experience that they are looking for when you apply to these positions. And so they not only look at grades and grade point average, they also look at the experience that you have, the clubs, the volunteer work that you do in the community, because they want a well-rounded employee when they're trying to hire people. So exactly what Chloe said, chill, try to enjoy your college life and try to gain that valuable experience. So I'm sorry for anybody who's asking questions. The stuff is like really, really slow. So I have one on here before I go. What codes do you follow? NEC, GO 95-128, any other? I'm not a civil engineer, so I have no idea if I even said that right.
Most of my codes are all building codes. So I use ASC 716. I use the International Building Code, California Building Code, and then LA Building Code. I use, a lot of Green Book standards for the county. There are other electrical engineering codes that the electrical engineers in my field follow that I might not know much of. Usually when I'm designing something that has to do with that code, like clearances for equipment and everything like that, I'm given that information by the electrical engineers. So I don't really have to really know those codes. I'm given that information by someone else, and then I just follow what I'm supposed to follow.
Okay, so, before we end this live, if there's any other questions, I'm really sorry. Again, this is kind of slow on my end. So I did have one question. So in the field that you're in now, civil engineers, I keep hearing that, do you need a professional engineering license? Would you recommend anyone going into civil engineering to get a PE and then to get an EIT, which is an engineering training, while you're in college? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So EIT, take it in college, your FE, Fundamentals of Engineering exam, take it in college before you forget everything. It's so, so important. And then that allows you to get your PE faster, usually in most states. And I know in California, I'm not sure about all states, but in California, you can now take, so California is one of the only states for civil engineering that has 3 exams. So you have the 8-hour PE exam that every state has to take. And then you have a seismic design, and then you have a survey exam. So I have passed the 8-hour. I'm still working on my seismic and my survey. Currently, I'm studying right now. But in California, the 8-hour one, you can now take in college as long as you have your EIT. So if you pass the FE, you can already take that 8-hour, and take it from someone who waited years to take it. You forget that stuff. The way the PE 8-hour works, if you didn't already know, the first 4 hours are the breadth. So you take, a little bit of every part of civil engineering, and then the afternoon 4 hours is depth, and you pick a specific depth to take. I took construction. There's also structural, water, no, there's not environmental. Is there environmental? I don't know, but there's a bunch. And so the morning part, if you haven't been working in those different fields, you forget it. It's a real struggle. So I definitely advise that any state that allows you to take it in college, as long as you have oops.
No, you're good now. It's like, it's not a Women in STEM Wednesday episode without any technical difficulties, so don't feel bad at all. That was actually pretty good. It was only a little glitch. Yeah, as a chemical engineer, I took the EAT in college, and it helped me out a lot, but I don't really use it as much as like a civil engineer, because again, I'm not even a chemical engineer right now at NASA. So, and then don't forget, I think you mentioned every state, do you have to, work with a professional engineer, like work underneath them for, extra or several years before you can even take your exam?
Yeah, so that's different in every state of how many years they require. And then some states count if you have a master's degree, they count that as part of your experience. In a lot of states, it's 4 years in all, whether they count your master's or not, that's different. But yeah, you have to work under a licensed PE, and then you have to turn in an application with a certain number of licensed PEs who you've worked under, giving you a recommendation.
Okay. All right. So I think that's all the questions that I have. I'm sorry if you use that like question icon, I can't look at it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the comments. I did want to, before we end, I want to give a huge shout out to Eduardo by letting us use his Engineering Memes Guy account. For those who are just joining, this is Women in STEM Wednesday, where we take over Eduardo's Engineering Memes Guy account and we showcase the different women in STEM. This week we have the amazing Chloe the engineer. And so, I want to thank Eduardo for allowing us to go on Engineering Memes Guy. Papaya tutors, right now I have a pinned comment